So what are we trying to do when we train someone? When we train someone, we're trying to enhance their knowledge, skills, and attitude. So, for example, you're trying to train someone to drive a car. You're trying to enhance their knowledge of the highway code, the traffic rules, their skills in handling the control mechanisms. So you're passing on, you're teaching the coordination skills, how to coordinate the steering, the gear lever, the gas pedal, and more. And also, you're trying to change their attitude or teach them the right attitude. They ought to demonstrate a responsible attitude to other road users. Okay, skills, knowledge, and attitude. But what are the differences between training and development? Now, both are also called HRD, Human Resource Development. Training and development. Now, one is short-term, the other is long-term. So we could say training is more short-term. You're training somebody to perform something in the immediate future. Training, long-term. The other training is short-term. Development is long-term. Training would require few resources, whilst development would involve many. It could mean going on specialized courses, the time to mentor, to supervise, the course material, customize. There could be many courses over many years. So this would involve many resources, whilst training fewer resources. And to put it bluntly, we could say training applies to low-level occupations. The routine occupations, operational, whilst development would apply more to professional. Training a doctor, training a nurse, technical, a software engineer, or manager of some form, marketing director, or assistant to the marketing director. Training applies to the current job, the current occupation, whilst development would involve the future occupation, which makes this life a bit difficult, because in the future we're not sure if this job is going to be here, if the same job that we're developing people for isn't going to be around, or is it going to disappear because of robotics, for example, because of AI. However, both overlap. When we talk about training, we're talking about development. When we're talking about development, we're also talking about a bit of training. Both are about L and P. Both are about L and P, where L would stand for learning. Both are learning, and P, performance. So we're teaching people to perform better. We hope that they are learning to perform better. Both are about learning and performance. So therefore, don't overlap. A few quotations before we go on. The illiterate Alvin Toffler is meant to be a well-known mainstream philosopher, writer, commentator, and he says, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn. And I think the difficult part here would be to unlearn. How do you unlearn? How do you teach an old dog new tricks? How does an old dog forget about all the tricks they've learned? So learning is quite sticky. It sticks. To unlearn, I think, is more difficult. And to also relearn, very challenging. But Einstein says education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. So on an MBA, what you're learning is not really important. All the facts which you're learning are quite irrelevant. But the training behind it, we're getting you to think independently, right? To make a judgment, to weigh evidence, to compare, to contrast. These are lifelong skills. So in the future, there are many things which you would need to learn. You have to unlearn, but hopefully some of the skills which you picked up on the program will stay with you, right? But the substantive content of it all is pretty irrelevant, or might be irrelevant in the future. So things do change. There are always new ideas. Working from home, and more. Just to illustrate the point, can you hear me? The host muted me. Yeah, so just to illustrate the point, so learning, some programs focus more on training, others on development, but they involve both. So at McDonald's, some of the training courses would have more to do with training, but other ones more to do with development. So what are the development ones? Maybe for the last one, right? So the graduate career advancement, this would be a development over many years, management development program, development over many years, systems management course, possibly, right? Restaurant leadership program, development, but all would also involve a bit of direct training. So even if you're graduate career advancement, even though you might be on the graduate career advancement program, you need to learn how to flip burgers, how to toast buns, how to dress the sandwiches, how to clean the shop floor. Everybody starts down below, right? So therefore, training and development overlap considerably, right? So we can't really make a very sharp distinction between the two. And then, at McDonald's, you've got all these, which are purely, I believe, development, or mainly development. So we are going to look at the two separately, training and development. So why do we need to train people? It seems to be a simple question, or a deceptively simple question. Why do we need to train people? Okay? Well, I'm sure you could come up with many different ideas, right? So we train people for loads of different things, but so we could say, well, to improve productivity, there is a correspondence between the level of learning and output training. We want to take them to a higher end of the learning curve. We all go through a learning curve. We want to push them on the learning curve, right? Of course, it depends what we're learning. A learning curve could take many shapes, but you want to push them on the curve. But training could also have a psychological component. People love the idea that they're being invested in. So the fact that the employer is investing money in them may give them a certain level of job satisfaction. So training has got a psychological component. Training basically can make people feel good, right? So people are happy that the employer is investing money in them, that they are being invested in. And we could carry on the too many benefits of reason. Culture change. Now, so that would be quite important. Culture change. If we're trying to change the culture, there are many things which we have to do, but one of which would be training. Training which your colleague, who's not there, Rowling was referring to in his discussion. Yeah, changing the culture. So last year, around this time last year, there was a massive movement, Black Lives Matter. So basically, the police force of the USA will need to be more sensitive to the needs of ethnic minorities. So we need to sensitize the police force to all the challenges of society at large. Black Lives Matter. Now, it won't happen overnight. We can't just change the culture of the police force in one day or 1 week. We can't just push a button so that, okay, culture changes. No. Right? There are many initiatives concerning leadership, right, motivation, workshops, all that, but one of which would be probably training. Yeah? So training may form a component, small or large, of the culture change program. And then again, the question is, can we change the culture of a company, of an organization, especially an old organization? Can we teach an old dog new tricks? That is the question, right? Well, the views vary. Some say it's easy to change the culture. They're likely to be management consultants who want your money. They say, yeah, it can be done. But some say it's almost impossible to change the culture, right? And some even say it probably is unethical to change the culture, because culture would give you a sense of security, would make you feel secure. So it's a bit like me trying to change your culture. I come to Malaysia, say, okay, I want to change your culture, right? I want to change your habits, what you believe in, the way that you live, yeah, the food that you eat, the school that you attend, the church that you attend, the temple, and so on. That would be totally unacceptable, right? Because it's going to make you feel insecure, right? It's going to attack your security. So therefore, there's the view that culture change could make people feel secure. But anyway, so I don't want to get into too much of a debate about culture, but training could help. And legal. So for legal reasons, we may have to right? We have to train people, right? So at the operational level for health and safety, people working in the kitchen, yeah, they need to be trained. We need to keep a record, right? So health and safety, legal reasons, and more. But why are employers reluctant to train? So try to answer the question, maybe from your perspective, from your experience. Why are employers reluctant to train? What do you think? So just put in a couple of points for all of us to learn something from each other. Why are employers reluctant to train? So say something in your chat box. Costs money and time, it's too costly, cost effective, shortage of manpower, cost and time. Okay, so I think many of you are saying cost and time. But now, remember, we need to link this back to our models of HRM. We did say some organizations adopt a hard HRM, others a soft, right? Others a soft HRM, right? So if you adopt a hard HRM, you would see training as a cost, as a payroll cost, as a drain on the resources of the company. So training is going to drain the resources of the firm, right? But if it is a soft approach, a soft HRM, then maybe you will see it as an investment. So why are employers reluctant to train? I think you've got it. Yes, all the points in the chat box are valid. So essentially, well, who's going to pay for it? Who pays? Right? So who's going to pay for it? There are maybe three parties who should be paying. Who's going to benefit? It would be the individual who's going to benefit. Okay, so the individual is going to benefit from it. But then we could say, so therefore the individual should pay. You should pay for your MBA. That's the argument, you should be paying for your own MBA. But then you could turn around and say, well, a company is going to benefit, right? So therefore there's the argument that the boss should pay for your training. But also, who would benefit? It would be society at large. Individual, company, society. So therefore, there's the view that the government should pay for your training and development. And indeed, in certain countries, they spend a big proportion of their budget on training and development. Singapore would be a pretty good example. Right? So one of the things, which Lee Kuan Yew, after 1963, country was completely barren. It was thrown out of the customs union by Malaysia. But Lee Kuan Yew said, well, a few things which are critical. Everybody should save money, but everybody should undergo some form of learning and training. Yeah? Learning, education, training, saving, all these, yeah, have been the saving grace for Singapore. And Singapore, of course, has turned into an economic powerhouse, partly because of their attitude towards investment in training and development. Who pays? So there's the argument that the government should pay. And we're not sure what skills to develop. Of course, maybe for now we might have an idea, but still, the world is moving so fast in the current pandemic with tech acceleration. What skills are we going to teach? Right? Tech acceleration. Okay? So how do we put a program? Who's going to do it? Yeah. And of course, as you said, people after receiving the training would quit the company. Yeah. So staff mobility here means, well, exit. Yeah. So staff exiting the company, staff turnover. And of course, is it a cost or an investment? If you adopt a hard HRM, it'll be a cost. Soft investment. The Japanese invest a lot of money. So your training is likely to last, if you're a graduate, you're on a graduate training program, your training would last for 10 years. 10 years. You won't be considered for promotion for 10 years. You've got to complete your 10-year MBA. They don't have business schools in Japan, but you do your MBA on the job. So now we'll talk about the training process, right? So the training process would apply to large, small, any type of organization. You need to investigate the training needs. Then you design, you conduct, you evaluate. Right? Investigate, design, conduct, and evaluate. Investigation of training needs, design, conduct, and you evaluate. Step one, right? So you identify training needs. How would you identify training needs? Well, it could be through observation. You observe somebody doing something, right? Serving the customer, maybe replying to the customer, helping the customer choose an item in the food menu. You've observed, and they're not doing it properly. So that's a training opportunity. Observation, right? Or it could be, you could do a kind of survey. You survey individuals and co-workers. You ask them specific questions to know what skills they require. Or there could be feedback from customers. It could be a complaint. Or indeed, it could be a good feedback too. So both could be used to train individuals. Or there could be a critical incident, like a COVID incident, which we did not handle properly, or which we did handle properly, right? So critical incident, so that could form the basis of our training. Or we could appraise the individual. Appraisal has got two dimensions, a reward dimension and a developmental dimension. So we appraise in order to identify strengths and weaknesses. Or it could be the results of quality control. Maybe there's a high reject rate, yeah, a high level of wastage. So this would be used as a basis for the training program, okay? For job analysis and more. Okay, let's start again. Observation. So we observe. Right? Observation. So for example, you've got a nurse here who is not sure how to use the machine. So the charge nurse over here will now step in, maybe might gather a few nurses and say, all right, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to teach you how to use the machine. So this could happen in your venture, a small company, large company, the principles remain the same. Or it could be feedback, could be good ones, bad ones. So that could be a good source of training. Well, there could be a critical incident, maybe in the UK. In the UK, it was reported some time ago, I think October last year, it was reported in the press that the death rate was the death from COVID was going down. not because they had discovered any kind of medication. There was no vaccine at the time, October, seems to be a long time ago. Why? The article said because healthcare professionals, doctors and nurses, had learned how to manage COVID patients. So, from the pandemic starting sometime in March all the way to October, they had been through thousands of patients, and so they had learned how to manage, right, the critical cases. So it's the learning that actually helped, yeah, to bring down the COVID death rate, right, significantly or slightly, I don't know, but there were benefits from learning. Right? Healthcare professionals had learned how to manage, yeah, COVID patient because there was no medication of the sort, right, as such. So, thus, we could learn from this experience, we could incorporate all these ideas into our training program, the critical instrument. And then you got performance appraisal, right? Performance appraisal. So, appraisal would involve assessing people's skills, knowledge, and attitude. Yeah? Skills, knowledge, and attitude, and their contribution to the company. So we could look for win-win situation. Or it could be quality control, high wastage, for example, higher than the tolerance level, so we could use it for training. Step 2, we need to design the training. So we need to put together a package. Generally, we need to be aware of the 3 R's, depending on what we're trying to teach. The 3 R's. So whatever we teach should be relevant. On an educational program, we learn lots of things which we may not use at work, right? On an MBA, you might be learning lots of things which do not have any direct relevance to your work, but for training, it's got to be relevant. We need to take into account the resources. So sometimes we may not be able to teach people everything about the job. So we teach them the key tasks. Yeah? So we use the key task approach. So if you're training somebody to become a salesperson, maybe you need to teach them how to do the presentation, how to close the sale. And the rest of it they could learn, hopefully, on the job themselves. Right? And then you need to know what outcomes you are seeking. You need to identify, quantify the results. So what do you hope to be, to achieve after the training, right? So what's the content? What resources are available? So such as material, online resources, who's the trainer, where can we access relevant material, and what are the objectives? Then we need to think about delivering the training. We need to deliver the training. So we could deliver in classroom, or it could be, just one moment. Oh, it could be CBT, computer-based training. So I got up to pick up this book. It says on my desk, a book here. So, Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. So, before the pandemic, I was planning to obtain my private pilot's license. So, I had to read this big fat book. There's a theoretical test. You need to know about how to fly the aircraft. It's pretty technical. And then we had to do the practical. Now, for the practical, to minimize costs, what many training schools are doing, so for the, hey, there's one, I don't even have a name. Yeah, so what was I saying? Yeah, so for the practical, to minimize costs, many training schools are teaching people to fly an aircraft using CBT, computer-based training. I'm sure you're familiar with all these. Yeah, so we could use, probably, where appropriate, CBT. At one of the universities, Anglia Ruskin, where I used to teach, this is how they train surgeons. It's a mixture of CBT, some practical courses, so surgeons were trained to perform surgical procedures this way. CBT. Or there could be a simulation. You're trying to train scuba divers, yeah? So you learn, yeah, scuba diving in a swimming pool. Or you could use a piece of software. There could be a software which we use. And increasingly, many companies give courses online. At Emirates organize about 55,000 online courses a year. Right? So there are 55,000 online courses a year. So using software, using sophisticated online methods, and again, it's effective. It could be effective, minimizing cost, and so on. And if at all possible, probably this would not apply to small company. But if we become a bit big, we've got many learners, right? Then we need to match the learning to the learning style. Some people are visual learners, some are auditory, some would like to touch, kinesthetic. Yeah, there are different names which are used. Yeah, so if you bought a machine, how do you operate the machine? So do you read all the instructions in English, in Spanish, in Mandarin, and then in Japanese, in 50 languages, before you operate? You read the Kama Sutra before you operate the machine. In which case, you would be called a conceptual learner, right? So another name which could be used is conceptual learning. Or do you throw the manual away? You start fumbling with the machine, right? You start fumbling with the buttons to operate the machine. So in which case you would be called an experiential learner. You learn by doing. Or do you actually ask your friend to operate the machine and then you copy what your friend is actually doing, in which case you would be called a modeler, right? So there are different learning styles, right? Different ways. And to quote Socrates, the philosopher, he says, you cannot teach anybody something that they do not already know. Basically, you can't teach people anything new as such, according to the philosopher, right? Which is rather strange. So why are we spending so much time learning things? Yeah. So we know it, but we are just being reminded, yeah, about it in a way. You cannot teach people things that they do not already know. Even if you're trying to teach a child 2 + 2 is equal to 4. The child had never heard of that expression. 2 plus 2 equal to 4. But the child would have seen 4 different items. 2 apples over here, plus other 2 apples. We add them together, you get 4. So, therefore, learning is about maybe a re-examination of what we know, a restructuring, a reframing of our existing knowledge, right? And then what we need to do is to evaluate training, evaluate, right? So the process does not stop after training has been delivered, right? So have the objectives been achieved? So we wanted people to be able to process 150 items through the machine at 0 error, right? At 100% accuracy, right? So have they been able to learn? Yeah? So now we discovered, yes, in the training room they did quite well, but have they applied what they've learned to the work there? Often there is what is called a transfer of learning difficulty, right? So the classroom situation should be identical to the work situation if we're training them away from the place of work. But sometimes we can't afford to do that. They need to be trained on the job. Do they need to be given additional support? And do we need, so we do an appraisal of training, do we need to amend a future activity? Okay, so then we need to watch, we need to observe probably the training on the job. Earlier, we taught them in a swimming pool. Now they're actually on the job. They're at the deep end of it, doing it properly. Okay, so much about training. Now we're going to move on and talk about development. So under development, we're talking more about the management of managers, yeah, and talented staff, right? So the management of managers and talented staff, right? And obviously, we need to cite a few authorities. So you've got Charles Handy and Story. So Handy and Story made a study of the management of managers and technical staff, professional staff, managers, etc. And they made a few observations. They say, well, it is very costly. It costs a lot of money to develop a manager, to develop a professional. Development is long term. And then there could be staff mobility. Mobility here means, well, staff exiting the company. Yeah. So resignation, people might resign, might quit, might exit the company. And development also involves a high level of interpersonal skills, right? So to cite somebody called Mintzberg says there are 2 things which are difficult to teach in the classroom, right? So 2 things which are difficult to teach in the classroom. So what are the 2 things? One of which would be S and management. So S and management are 2 things which are difficult to teach in the classroom. So what's the S? The S over here would be swimming and management are difficult to teach. So that's why. So this is a quotation by somebody called Mintzberg, M-I-N-T, a well-known commentator. Henry Mintzberg. Okay? Henry Mintzberg. Two things are difficult to teach in the classroom: swimming and management. Okay? So therefore, well, what he says is, I mean, for example, MBA. He doesn't approve of the full-time MBA program, MBA programs for young people with no work experience. He said you can only do an MBA when you are actually working, when you've got work experience. This way, you'd be able to relate your learning to the actual job situation. So certainly, Mintzberg would approve of what we are doing, but there are some programs that train a 21-year-old, right? Where 21-year-old are doing an MBA. That would be totally totally unacceptable to Mintzberg. So therefore, it involves a high level of interpersonal skill. Appraisal development is long term, therefore it makes appraisal difficult. How do we know whether somebody is on their way to becoming a top-notch professional of some kind? A professional engineer, professional doctor, professional dentist, professional anything, yeah? A CEO, right? So it makes appraisal difficult. It's too long. And then the context may not change in spite of individual development. That is to say, the organization too should also evolve. So if you're creating a company, so what is it that should evolve about your company, right? So if you're creating your own organization, over time, that organization will have to evolve too, right? It's not only the staff, but many other things. What things are we talking about? Well, you can think of a model called you could think of what we call the McKinsey's 7S model, right? So what are the 7 S's that should evolve in tandem? So there should be, the first S would be the strategy. How do we compete? That should be revisited. That should become a bit more sophisticated over time. So that would be the first S. And then the other S's that should also evolve, right, would be the systems that we are using. The admin, accounting, marketing, IT system. Then there would be what they call the shared values, what we normally call the culture. So the culture equally should evolve. What else? Well, yeah, the staff. Okay, the staff, the development of the staff, the training, but that would be one of many. The style of management. A dictatorial style, maybe, yeah, should be out, autocratic, not so productive. A more empowering, participative style, right? A more participative style. Okay? And then what else? We could say the structure. So what kind of structure do we want? A flat structure? Do we want to have a tall, hierarchical? It's up to us, right? So the systems, yeah, so that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we're looking for one more. So the last one would be the skills. So that would be the skills of the company, yeah, not the skills of individual, of the company. So, for example, the company should be good at something. I did tell you at Canon, for example, the skill should be in making lenses. So, therefore, if we develop, so what we're trying to say, development could be just one-sided. We've only developed the staff, right? But the other parts are not evolving, right? So everything else should evolve in conjunction, in parallel with the development of staff, right? So this is what is meant by the context may not change in spite of individual development. And in the future, we expect many people to be unemployed, but there will be a shortage of skilled people. But also, it involves careers and career management. So, what's a career? Is it the same as a job? Is a career the same as a job? Probably not. Intuitively, we feel that a career is more like long term. Now, if we go back to our Maslow hierarchy of needs, yeah, so in a career, we're trying to satisfy our higher needs, our ambitions, aspirations, our dreams. We want to apply our knowledge, our education, right, to create some value for ourselves, our family, our company. We want to be involved in many projects and more. So a career is pretty long term. And there are many definitions of careers. For example, Shane says a career is that occupation which an individual is least likely to give up if forced to make a change. Basically, over time, we would have discovered our career anchor. What's a career anchor? What's an anchor? An anchor is something which you drop to prevent the ship from moving. So over time, we would have discovered our little niche in this world, and this would be our career. We want to grow with it. So if we're forced to make many changes in life, this is probably one of the things we are least likely to change. We could change the city we live in, we could change our spouse, change our motor car, but our career we don't change very often. Some people do, but it's not something which we do all the time. You could have changed it a few times, but not too many times. It's not something which you change every year at any rate. Okay? So, a career, so somebody said a career is not the same as a job, a career is long term. Okay. Now, there are challenges when we manage careers. Before I go on, let's continue with this. Let me look, let's look at the next page. Yeah, so at McDonald's, you've got many career development. Let me just skip this one for a moment. There are what we call career anchors. Career anchors. So, Shane studied MBA graduates over time. And he discovered that graduates over time, over 10 years, he studied graduates over 10 years. What did these graduates do? What was their motivation? What motivated them? What were their aspirations? Some of them aspired to develop competence in a functional area, like becoming the director of marketing, the finance director. Some wanted to develop overall managerial competence, the general manager, the CEO, president, managing director. Some preferred autonomy to work as a consultant, academic, teacher, lecturer, security, stability. Some were more concerned about security and stability for themselves and their family. Some wanted to develop their own company, and some of the well-known companies developed by MBA graduates would be Nike, for example. Nike, Phil Knight, the Stanford MBA, developed Cisco, Nike, quite a few other ones. In the UK, we've got Pret-a-Manger, right, developed by two MBA graduates who were at Westminster Business School, and they've become multi-billionaires selling sandwiches. Or some were motivated by the special cause, societal cause. Some were looking for pure challenge. Some were more concerned about lifestyle, work for a little while, travel a bit, see the world, and more. Right? So, career. Now, what are some of the career problems which could arise over time? What are the career challenges? What could go right? What could go wrong? So, best way would be to look at a graph. So, I will just draw a picture, and we could say the years that you can spend in your career, number of years, which you could spend. So probably on average, I don't know, let's say you spend a good 30 years in your career. And now over here, I could call it your level of, let's call it job satisfaction. How happy are you? Yeah, the feel-good factor, the pride which you have. Yeah, how is it going to look like? It's going to be, are you going to be on a high? It's a bit like a marriage. You got married, are you going to be on a high forever? Or do you start on low and you go high, high? Not really. So, for many careerists, for many people, it works a bit like this. You start on a high. This could last a year, a couple of years, or maybe 6 months or so, a few months. Then suddenly, at an early stage, you might experience a major dip. And it might take quite a while before you recover, if at all. You might even exit the career. And then towards the end, you might become a bit more detached. Yeah? So, what do we call this part over here? What do we call it? Okay? So, this part over here would be called, right? This amounts to what we call a career S. A career S. Right? So the S here is a career shot. You got a career shot. So my question to you would be, why the career shot? Why? So, what are the reasons?
Gap, is that something to do with expectation gap?
Maybe an expectation gap. I think that would be pretty good science. Yeah. So, an expectation gap. Your expectations are not met. Now, so probably something went wrong with the recruitment. So you were not. So they didn't give you all the pros and the cons of the job. You had some expectations which were not borne out in reality. Yeah. So you were a bit too ambitious, too idealistic, a bit too romantic. But only when you felt the real texture of the job, then you discovered that there was a mismatch between what you expected and what you got, and hence the gap. Okay, expectation gap. Yeah. What else? So again, you would probably have been fairly well educated. Today, many people would have gone to university. Yeah. So they might see a gulf between what they've learned at college and the real world. They see a gulf, yeah, a big difference between what we call probably theory and practice, yeah. So they would have learned a lot of things, yeah. They want to apply them at work, but they see nothing of the sort, yeah. Or it could be your boss, your supervisor, your immediate line manager. So if you're So your immediate line manager would symbolize the company, right? So they're a symbol of a company. So if they happen to be nice, friendly, empowering, yeah, they adopt an open door policy, yeah, they are a true mentor, developer, teacher, then your view of the company, of your career, would be very positive. But it could go the other way, right? Completely in the opposite direction. They might be too heavy handed, they've got no time for you, they think you're an idiot, yeah? So, they, they think you're too cocky, so they want to, so this could go in the opposite direction, could backfire, and therefore that could be sufficient grounds for the culture shock, yeah? Okay, so there are many reasons. But our next question would be, how do we deal with a career shock? Right? So how could we deal with career shock? Okay, let's stop for our break, 10 minutes, and then we'll answer the question. Thank you. Okay. So, what were we talking about? We were talking about this. Okay, so why the career shock? So it could be to do with expectations, the role of your first line manager, the lack of performance appraisal, right? So this could be to do with expectations, the lack of performance appraisal, or probably a gulf between theory and practice, gulf between theory and practice. So therefore, to minimize the career shock, a possible solution, let's say, is to probably to have effective recruitment. So at the recruitment phase, we need to tell the individual what are the pros and the cons of the job, right? So what are the good things, what are the challenges of the job? Or maybe there could be a trial period. Then we need to have an effective first line manager, right? So your line manager, right, should be effective at handling young people, or so people joining the career at an early age. Yeah, so they should be mature enough, a good mentor, a good leader, a good model, role model to follow. Right. So it could be a trial period. Yeah, for instance. Yeah, so what we could have probably a trial period. Yeah. We need to have a mentor at this stage, right? Somebody who could mentor to prevent these problems from rising. We should probably have an effective recruitment. Effective recruitment here means to tell people, yeah, at an early stage what problems could arise within the company. Okay? So that would be some of the early career problems. What could go wrong later, right? What could go wrong later? So, well, another way of looking at it would be we could call it the subsequent career problems. So the other career problems, we could draw a picture, a diagram to look at this. Let's call it over here the current performance. So current performance could be high, or current performance could be low. Future promotion or responsibility. So some people are likely to be given further responsibility, and some would be low. Okay? They've got low chance of being given further responsibility and more. So normally, people over here are called, what are they called? They are called the stars. Use a different color. They're called the stars of the company. Stars. But people over here would be called, you might be thinking of dogs, but we can't call people dogs, the deadwood of the company, the deadwood. Yep, deadwood. Here we have the learners. They've got the potential for growth. And then we have the solid citizens. Yep. So basically what we could say, well, for the deadwood, you may wish to get rid of them. But on the other hand, why did they become deadwood? People don't join a company as a deadwood. So why did we allow them to become a deadwood? So possibly we could try to change their attitude, rehabilitate them into solid citizens. These solid citizens could be training the learners. The learners hopefully would replace the stars, and the stars would be given further responsibility in the future. So think about the dynamic flow, right, of people. So people should flow around the company. Okay? So this could happen even in a small company. We're not talking of large ones, even in a small company. So there could be those challenges. Okay? So other career problems could be people might become deadwood, or maybe to make the best use of our professional managerial stock is to get the solid citizens to train the learners, right? So both would feel quite important, would have a renewed sense of importance. Yeah, maybe the solid citizens were here before; they've been shunted into career sidelines. So when we give them further responsibility, particularly to train younger staff, that could give them the sense of purpose, right? Could give them a sense of purpose. But my question to you is, what motivates people at work? What do you think? What motivates people at work? What is it that motivates people at work? Appreciation, recognition, empowerment. Yes, so you're all working. Yeah, okay. High pay. But when you're working, are you thinking of the money, the sense of achievement, satisfaction, a bonus, promotion, all these clear purpose? Yeah. In your own time, just have a look at this video. Okay, so I'll give you the link. It had 18 million hits. Now I need to give it to everybody. So, oh well. Yep. So it had 18 million hits, and It's called, let me show it to you. Yeah, it's here. So, the surprising truth about motivation, about what motivates us. The surprising truth about motivation, at 18 million hits. It's quite interesting, easy to understand. Yeah, let me tell you what he says. Right?
The northeastern part of the United States. Let's talk about a study done at MIT.
Basically, he says what motivates people at work would be he motivates people at work. A, F, PAM. P-A-M. The P would be the purpose. So what does the organization stand for? So the company you've created, what is the purpose, the vision, the mission? Where's it going to take us? How exciting? How responsible might it be? Is it making a contribution to climate change? Is it reducing pollution? Is it a social entrepreneurship scheme? Right? Whatever it is, some people would be attracted to it. Yeah? So it's that vision, the mission, the purpose. Okay? So that would be the P. Then we've got the A. A would be the autonomy. Autonomy. So autonomy is the urge to be self-directed. The urge to do things by yourself. Remember, Morning Star, people were independent. The urge to be self-directed. Urge to be self-directed. And then you've got the M over here, right? Mastery. Mastery. The urge to get better at what you are doing, right? So he says for any type of job, that will be true, right? So all these will be true anywhere in the world for any type of job, farming, yeah, or looking after a building, prime minister, or finance director, professional, whatever. Okay? So you've got all these. Now, what would be the content of management development programs, for example? We could have a look. Now, I did say that it involves a high level of interpersonal skills. So, management development, what do they teach you? What do they actually teach you? Yeah. So, on management development programs, you might be taught competencies like these. You would be taught how to focus on results. Yeah? Drive for results, stretch goals, you take initiatives, leading change. Yeah? Are you able to champion change? Do you have the integrity, interpersonal skills? How do you inspire other people? How do you develop? What style of management do you use? Your personal capability, yeah, innovation, self-development, all kinds of things. Okay? So all these would take time to learn, to develop. So what are the development approaches, the development models that we use. What are the development models? There are many. So how do we train managers or professional staff, develop professional staff and so on? There are too many ones. But there are two main ones. I could summarize those by saying that there are two main approaches here. So in conclusion, I'll cite Bowman, who says that there are two main models of management development. What he calls the shotgun approach, and the target approach. Under shotgun, this could involve a mixture of short courses, so the training is attending short courses, and then there could be random job rotation. So you do a variety of jobs, you work on systems, work in a shift system, you work in the kitchen, you work in the office, whatever. Now, it could be low cost, but not effective. So, because it's too random, it's not systematic, it's difficult to see what you are doing, right? So, that's the shotgun approach. Then we have two other approaches. So we've got another approach which would involve two things. It would involve working on a live project. For example, you are charged with developing an online strategy. That you're working by yourself or with a team on a live project. But also, you're attending a customized course of study. So, e.g., you're doing a course in, shall we say, digitalization. And both would be monitored by somebody very senior, by a mentor. That would be expensive, but highly effective. Okay? So Bowman, in his article, gives a picture of the training. The picture here of the training. And he says, well, for the shotgun, we're spraying the training with a lot of bullets, but we missed the point. But for the target, it is actually dead on target. Okay? So the target approach. So the target, though it is more expensive, it can deliver on its promise. Okay. Right, so I think we spent quite a bit of time on the HR. You should be pretty comfortable now to answer the question. I don't think you'll have any real difficulty if you apply yourself I can't see you not doing it. Now we come to the last one, the break-even point of your new business. So what's break-even? Break-even, the break-even point. Okay. Right. Now, in order to understand break-even, you would need to understand the meaning of costs. What are the costs in a company? Let's consider a simple scenario. No, wrong one. Okay. So consider a family of four, mom, dad, and two young children. And annually, they incur all these expenses: food, mortgage, clothing, car, blah, blah, blah. What's the total? A quick mathematician, what do you make it? Total, everything?
48.
48. Yeah, okay, I'll make it 48. So, how much does it cost each person to live in this house? So it would be £48,000 divided by 4. That would give you £12,000. All right. Okay. So nothing difficult so far. So it costs £12,000 each to live in this house. Now, let's complicate the equation. Let us say Mummy and Daddy are lucky to have a new baby, or unlucky to have a baby. What costs would go up? Is it going to cost £12,000 to feed the baby? Yes or no? Well, let's go back to the list here. What costs would go up? Well, we know the food costs would definitely go up because of the baby. Now, currently, you've got £6,000 a year. You just imagine you've got a greedy little bugger who's eating all the time. It costs as much, 1,500 quid. £1,500 to feed one child. Okay. Mortgage. Is the mortgage going to go up because of the baby? Now, the mortgage could go up, but not because of the baby. It could go up for different reasons, yeah, but independently of the baby. So, mortgage will go up. Clothing, yes. Motor car, not particularly. Education, not yet. Holiday, yes, maybe. Entertainment, not really. Medical, yes. Utilities, probably very marginal. Yeah, you need to keep in a cold country like the UK. You got to spend more money heating up. Yeah, so probably say £400. Now, what am I trying to demonstrate? There are some costs which do not change as you add more people in the house. But there are some costs which are going to change. Like we said, food, clothing, holiday, medical. and probably utilities, mortgage, motor car, education, entertainment, relative to the child will not change, right? Okay? So, relative to the baby. But if it was an adult, maybe entertainment costs would go up. So, just to simplify everything, you've got what we call, what am I trying to get at? You need to understand what is meant by fixed costs. So those costs which do not go up because of the child, and those costs which are likely to go up, these would be called the variable costs. And those two things are important in making managerial decisions and, of course, to calculate break even. So far, so good, nothing difficult. Now, let us make a business decision, right? Let's look at a scenario. So your business, you are a PC manufacturer. So that would be your venture. You've got a capacity to make 11,000 units, maybe a year or a month, I don't know, over a period of time. The current production, you've got an order for 10,000 units. And you've got all these costs. So can you find a total again for me?
4 million.
Total would be 3 million. If you don't know, don't say. You've got to be accurate. What do you make it? I make it 3,500,000. Is this what you make it? 3.5. There would be 1 million, 1, 11, 13, 16, 20, 25, plus 1, 3.5. Okay, so total would be, so to make 10,000 PCs, the total cost is 3,500,000. One more zero. 3,500,000. Now, what is the cost per PC? Well, we divide by 10,000 units. Let me just put the pound sign here, pound sign, and then you divide by 10,000 units. Units. So, what do we get? Now, this would be, you knock 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it would be 350 pounds. It's probably a very kind of premium PC. Let's say your selling price would be about, I don't know, let's say 500 pounds. Right? So you're making a nice margin of 150 pounds. So far, so good, nothing difficult. Okay? Nothing terribly difficult. So what we've done, we've added all these divided by 10,000. But now we have, so it's 350 pounds, 350 pounds. Now the company gets an additional order for 1,000 PCs at £230 per unit. Do you accept or reject the order? What are you going to do? On financial grounds, would you accept or reject the order? Reject, reject, reject. Okay, so in case you reject the order. Accept. Oh, some people are saying accept. Everybody says reject, a few say accept. Why would we accept? Well, we need to go back to the idea of fixed costs and variable costs once again. So, when we go back to here, let's go back to that okay. Now we need to know which costs would actually go up. It would be, would material costs go up? Yes. Labor costs go up? Yes. Rent? No. Admin? Not really. No. Utilities? Yes, probably, because electricity and so on. Depreciation? No. Packing distribution? Yes. Salaries? No. So those which are not going up are called the fixed costs. They're called the fixed costs. So, and the ones which are going up are called the variable costs. Now we said the variable costs, let's go back to the beginning. Material would be 1 million. Labor, 500,000. Utilities, 200. Packing, 200. And when we add all of these, what do we get? 15, 19. 1,900,000. So the total variable costs would be, the total variable costs are material, labor, packing, distribution, utilities. So the total variable costs are 1,900,000. Let me, and one more zero. Switch that here. And they are making how many pieces? They're making 10,000 units. And that would be therefore 190. But they are getting how much money for it? Let's go back to the slides and have a look. So the ones which would go up would be materials, labor, utilities, packing, distribution. Just like the baby, some costs would go up, other costs will not go up. So they're getting £230, but the additional cost per unit is only 190. So therefore, they are likely to make £40 profit. Now, this would be on the assumptions that the first 10,000 units are fetching the sum greater than 350 or £500. So if the majority are paying the full price, the minority could pay a low price, a price less than what appears to be the cost price. But still, we could make a profit. So the profit we're going to make would be about £40. Therefore, we would accept. Okay? We would accept the order, at least on financial grounds. I'm not sure on political grounds For future consumption, we may not accept it, right? For reputational purposes, maybe not, but certainly in terms of pound, shilling, and pence, in terms of money, yeah, we are likely to make £40 per unit. Okay, in which case, so many organisations price. This is called variable cost pricing or marginal pricing. Yeah? Marginal costs or marginal pricing. So many organisations price on a marginal basis. So the spare capacity. So the company has got a spare capacity of 1,000 units, which we could sell at a low price. But how do we calculate break even? Now, break even is the point at which you're making neither a loss nor a profit. Now, let us say, what are the, well, let's go back to our good old friend here. So the example, okay, so what would be the break-even point? Now, we'll ignore, yeah, so we'll assume, now, for this example, what are the fixed costs? Now, we know the fixed costs must be 1,600,000. The total cost, let me write it down for you. The total costs were the total costs for the PC manufacturer, the total costs were £3,500,000, right? The variable costs were we said, what did we say? 1,900,000. Therefore, the fixed costs must be the difference, which would be 1,600,000. Okay? One more zero. Now, suppose, and the selling price, so the selling price per unit was normally, let's work on the basis of £500. Okay? And we know that the variable costs were 190 per unit. That's where we are. Now, let us say in a given year, we sell nothing at all. We sell no PC. We sell nothing. We make and sell nothing. Let's say we make nothing and sell nothing. Therefore, our loss would equal to, well, since we're not going to make anything, we're not going to incur the variable costs. But the fixed costs will be there. So we're going to lose 1/6. So our total loss would be 1,600,000. Okay? But if we were to sell only one PC, let's say we sell only one PC, what happens? Well, so if we sell one PC, Yeah, we are going to collect £500. What wish? Right? £500. But then we'll incur the variable costs of 190. 190. Okay? So the difference would be 310. That difference, what would happen? It's going to lower that loss. So it would be 1,600,000 minus 310. If we sell two PCs, 16 multiplied by 2, 620, we bring it down. Every time we sell one unit, we're reducing this loss by £310. So we will keep on reducing it, reduce, until we hit a point where it is zero. And that's the point at which we call break even. So how many do we need to sell to break even? That is the question, right? So if you multiply this, yeah, if you take 1,600,000 divided by 310, you will get something like 516. Well, we could round it up. You could say 5162 units. So you need to sell 5,162 units, yeah, in order to make a profit. In order to break even, So once you pass this 5163, you start making a profit. Okay, you start making a profit. In other words, what's happening is every time you sell, let me just clear this, or should I just put it here? Let me just draw the diagram. Let's just draw a picture. So okay. Let's see. We could call this the contribution type. This is called the fixed cost stack. Fixed cost stack. So the total fixed costs that we need to recover would be 1,600,000. Every time we sell a PC, we sell it for £500, but we are dropping not £500 in the tank, we are actually dropping only £310. Yeah? So we're dropping a contribution of 310. 310. Okay? Each drop represents £310. 310. So at some point, our fixed cost tank is going to be full. So how many drops do we need to sell? 5,162 drops will have to fill up the tank. Afterwards, the tank will be full, then it's going to drop. The overflow is going to overflow in the second tank. What would you call the second tank? What name would you give it? Anybody? What would you call it? This tank over here would be called the profit tank. So at some point it's going to overflow, and then we call it profit tank. That's the break-even. So break-even point will be when the tank is just full, and then we start making a profit. Hello. Yeah. So you are going to make profit. So are we okay? Are we comfortable with this? And then what you could do, you could always draw a diagram to show your break-even point. So you'll find it in many tanks. Yeah. So basically, if we're not selling enough PCs, so on a diagram, 5,162 would be here. Below 162, 5162, we're making a loss. Past 5162, we start making a profit. So the overflow would be here. Variable cost, fixed cost, unit sold, 5162, that would be in money terms, 5162 multiplied by 500. Okay, so easy, nothing very difficult. Okay, so just follow it on Google, YouTube, and textbooks. It's quite an easy concept. Okay, so let's have a look whether we've done what we said we were going to do. Yes, I think we've discussed virtually everything. I think you should be ready to do an assignment. Yeah? Okay? So if you want to write to me, you've got my email on the portal, and also I'm ashamed to say I'm on Facebook. You could send me a request, no problem. Will the slides be shared on the portal? Yes, I will pass them over to Baldo or to the school or whoever. Yeah? And I hope we never meet again for this module. We could meet for other modules, no problem. So that would be bad news if we were to meet again. Yeah? I wish you well, and I hope you do well in this module. Thank you for your attention.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any question? No. All right. So all the best of luck, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. No problem. Thank you, everybody. So
Thank you.
all the best. Yeah. Okay. So I'll end the meeting now, and so my email. Okay, my email address. You've got it on the chat. Okay, let me give you my email address. So my email. I'll give you my Hotmail address here. Okay. So that would be my email if you want to know it. Yep. Thank you, everybody. So I'll end the meeting now. Yep. So my colleagues in Malaysia, thank you, and students, thank you. Goodbye.